If we look at the Middle East, I think it's about time we stop, those of us who support, as most of us do, Israel in this body, for apologizing for our support for Israel. There's no apology to be made. None. It is the best $3 billion investment we make. Were there not an Israel, the United States of America would have to invent an Israel to protect her interest in the region. The United States would have to go out and invent an Israel. If we look at
the Israeli governments portray themselves as peace-loving upholders of high moral principles. And yet, they have claimed to be the protectors of human rights. And yet, they proclaim that they are the only democratic country in the Middle East. And yet, they humbly depict themselves as a small, existentially threatened country surrounded by bloodthirsty killers who want to eradicate her from existence. And yet, they declared war on Hamas as a terrorist organization. And yet, they profess that they want to be friends with Saudi Arabia. And yet, all Israeli governments are the last of the Western colonizing powers of the Middle East. From the time of the Balfour Declaration, they have forcibly evicted the inhabitants of Palestine after the 1948 war, as attested to by Israeli historians. They burned the villages of the Palestinians to the ground. They repeated that calumny after the 1967 war, when more of the inhabitants of what remained after the 1948 war were equally dispossessed of their lands. Despite several UN Security Council resolutions rejecting the acquisition of territory by force of arms, all Israeli governments paid no heed.
I want to send a message to the Palestinian child of 2023. And that message is a crystal clear one, that the people of Ireland stand with you. So Ireland must lead the way with real, tangible measures that shows the world, and most importantly shows the children of Jenin, that we want no hand, act nor part in the systematic destruction of the Palestinian people. We should, of course, seek to build consensuses and support from others, particularly within the EU. But we should also be very clear. If they won't move, we will. Government must immediately move to progress the illegal Israeli settlements divestment bill 2023. The bill simply prevents Irish taxpayers' money from being invested in companies that profit from Israel's illegal occupation and settlement expansion. Wait 9 months, says the government, just as every child of Palestine since the Nakba of 1948 have been told to wait. Likewise, when it comes to recognising the state of Palestine, the official position of this House, wait, says the government. For the Palestinians, it is always a waiting game. Meanwhile, our government complies with EU accelerated procedures when it suits Israel. Israel actually enjoys what is officially called a preferential trading relationship with the European Union that is worth billions of euro in trade to a state that ignores, disregards and breaches UN resolutions and international law every single day. Why don't we tell Israel to wait? To wait until they comply with international law, to wait until they end their occupation, their annexation, their illegal expansion of illegal settlements and their ongoing brutal apartheid of the Palestinian people, or to wait until they engage constructively with their Palestinian neighbours and reach a peace settlement that upholds the rights of the Palestinian people to their dignity, to their human rights, to their own state, free from apartheid, free from occupation, free from military aggression. Because it is simply not conceivable to tell another generation of Palestine children that they must wait. It is time for the world to act. But Taoiseach, it is time for Ireland to lead the way.
But the Palestinian people's right to self-determination, their right to justice, must also be recognized. And put yourself in their shoes. Look at the world through their eyes. It is not fair that a Palestinian child cannot grow up in a state of their own. living their entire lives with the presence of a foreign army that controls the movements, not just of those young people, but their parents, their grandparents, every single day. It's not just when settler violence against Palestinians goes unpunished. It's not right to prevent Palestinians from farming their lands or restricting a student's ability to move around the West Bank or displace Palestinian families from their homes. Neither occupation nor expulsion is the answer. Just as Israelis built a state in their homeland, Palestinians have a right to be a free people in their own land. But before I came here, I met with a group of young Palestinians from the age of 15 to 22. And talking to them, they weren't that different from my daughters. They weren't that different from your daughters or sons. I honestly believe that if any Israeli parent sat down with those kids, they'd say, I want these kids to succeed. I want them to prosper. I want them to have opportunities just like my kids do. I believe that's what Israeli parents would want for these kids if they had a chance to listen to them and talk to them. I believe that.
I would say that the United States, our responsibility is to the stability and the security of the region. That means being able to support, yes, Israel in its defensive capacities, right, in its ability in that context. But it also means that the United States has a responsibility to ensure accountability to human rights, to prevent the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians, and to ensure that horrors do not happen in the names of victims who do not want their tragedy used to justify further violence and injustice.
Right.
Beautiful.